We've been in a series about forgiveness. We just started it last week, and there are times where material, you just come by, and there's times where you really feel like God is speaking to you to just share some things. And I think forgiveness is a really, really difficult thing for us as people to do. It's a trap that Satan uses to be unforgiving. It affects our hearts, as we learned last week. It keeps us captive. And so today we're going to be talking about more of that. There's going to be 5 more of these after today, to really start to change our hearts to have a forgiving heart, a heart like Jesus. And so before we get there, I've been told that studies have shown in order for us to really handle some deeper things or things that might be difficult, you have to learn to laugh. So, I'm going to give you a bad joke, because that's what we do on Sunday mornings before we get started. You need to hear something that might just change the way that your heart came in, to soften it up with something that is at least funny to me. And so, I heard this story of 3 boys that were together, and they were talking about how talented their dads were and what they did for a living and different things like that. And the first boy was saying, my dad, he just writes just a few words on a piece of paper, gives it to somebody, they call it a poem. And they give him $50 for it. The next kid was like, well, I mean, that's great and all, but my dad, he writes a few words on a piece of paper, and he gives it to somebody, they call it a song, and they give him $100 for it. And the last kid says, I got you guys all beat. My dad just writes a few words down on a piece of paper, they call it a sermon, and it takes 8 people to collect all the money. All right, this week, one of the hardest things in forgiving is to understand that just forgiveness doesn't have room for abuse. And just because we are called to forgive, like Jesus forgave us, it doesn't mean that you are telling somebody it is okay that you did all of these awful things to me. Now, this is something that is really, really hard for us as people to grasp, because when we look at Scripture, we look at the Bible, we might think, well, the reason it's so hard to forgive is because it's almost like telling that person that you didn't do anything to hurt me. It's actually the opposite. When we start to forgive people, we need to understand that we have to call the hurt what it is. We have to put a name to it. We have to label it. We have to call sin what it is, and it is sin. And when somebody does something to harm you, you can't just allow it to be and say, I can move on and I can forgive them and just walk away. Now, we're going to get to a lot of these things as we talk about forgiveness. Just because you are forgiving somebody doesn't mean that they want to be forgiven. And you don't have to have them coming to you and asking, like, please, forgive me, for you to release that from your heart. But just for today, let's really delve into something that is a tough topic to talk about, but it's something that we need as people, because Satan will trap us in bitterness, resentment, and rejection if we don't allow our hearts to let go of some things that have been hurt against us. So we're going to stay in the Old Testament. Last week we talked about how Esau had to come to grips with the hurt that Jacob did to him. And as he was going towards him, Jacob was afraid, right? He knew that Esau was coming, and Esau had already threatened that he was going to kill his brother once he was done grieving his dad. But by the time Esau got there, he just wanted to embrace his brother, and he offered him this gift of forgiveness without any wants from Jacob, even though Jacob gave him a lot in return. But in doing that and having that time, Esau allowed himself to come out from under that trap of being caught with a bitter heart and an angry heart. And so we are going to now go with a relative of those guys, and we're going to be talking about Joseph today. Now, there's something that happens in this story, and what really we get to see is something that happens to Joseph would be considered an unforgivable thing. As people, we kind of have this tier of things that can happen to us that are forgivable and things that are not. People who are, worthy for us to be around, and people who are not. We create a list of comforts that we can have. There are some things, if somebody lies to me and they say, hey, I'm sorry, I lied to you, you go, totally fine. I can forgive that. But if somebody comes and directly hurts me in a way that it comes out of nowhere, or maybe does something to my children, or does something that is really harmful, we will say, you can ask for forgiveness all you want. You're going to have to pay for what you did first, do all these things. And even if they did pay for everything they did, you would still hold something in your heart because it was such an egregious act against you. And so I want us to kind of pull out from that for a second. And when we look at people, what they do to us, if we cannot pull out from the situation what it is that hurt us and name it, we'll have a hard time being able to forgive that person. So let's see what happens to Joseph. Many of you know the story. Some of you don't, but we'll go through it. I'll try to go through this quickly because, if I read every bit of it, it'll take a long time. But let's hear what happens to Joseph. Backstory is, Joseph is the favorite son. At this time, he's one of the youngest ones. He's the favorite son of his dad. He gets this cool coat, a lot of colors. His brothers don't like him already. Then Joseph comes to them with this great dream that he has that they're all going to bow down before him at some point. And they go, no, we're not. And how do people take care of things in the Old Testament when they're angry at a brother? For some reason, they plot to kill him. So look at your brothers and sisters if you have one near you, and just say, thank you for at least not plotting to kill me when I've driven you nuts. We got 3 sisters in the front row. I see them already. But it is true. In our anger, these days, most of us haven't got to that point of thinking, I will slay them. But this is what happens to Joseph. When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes that dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns. We can tell Father a wild animal has eaten him. Then, we'll see what becomes of his dreams. Have you ever been there? And you can just see Joseph in my imagination. I see him, maybe this is way off base, but like skipping towards them, all happy. Because they look at him and say, here comes this dreamer. Joseph is a happy-go-lucky guy. He knows that he and God have a relationship, but he also is treated very well by his father. So at this point, there is nothing to bring any kind of weirdness for Joseph in his life. He's just like, God is good to me. I got this cool coat. I had this weird dream, but it was great. And, life right now is good. But now his brothers see him coming in the distance. They know who he is, and they say, let's take this guy out. And they plot this awful, awful plan. But when Reuben heard this, his older brother, of their scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. Let's not kill him, he said. Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into this empty cistern here in the wilderness, and he'll die without laying a hand on him. Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. How many of you are the older sibling? There is something, no matter how much you don't like the youngest one, that you just feel like, my parents would kill me. I'm not the one that steps in. Because I'm the oldest and I know better. And I think Reuben, secretly in his heart, was hoping to get favor from his dad. And he goes, if I can just talk him into not doing anything really bad, I'll still give him this terrible plan. Let's just let him rot to death by not even touching him. But he was going to come back in and save him. And he leaves thinking everything is good. And the story continues. So when Joseph arrives, his brothers ripped off that beautiful robe that he was wearing. They grabbed him. They threw him into a cistern. The cistern was empty there. And there was no water in it. That's one of those, big wells. Okay. Then just as they were sitting down to eat, can you just imagine this? Let's just all come along this journey together, how crazy this is. They throw the brother in this empty well. And they sit there and go, all right, let's go grab some lunch. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Then they saw a caravan of camels coming in the distance, coming towards them. It was a group of Ishmaelites, traders, taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin to Gilead down to Egypt, from Gilead down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what are we going to gain by killing him? We have to cover up crime. And then he goes in and says, instead of hurting him, let's just sell him to the traders. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. And his brothers go, great idea. Let's not kill him. Let's just make him a slave for the rest of his life. To live in this awful environment, to work really hard, to get beat, whatever it is, not eat great. That sounds like a way better plan. So when the Ishmaelites and the Midianite traders came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him for 20 pieces of silver. And the traders took him to Egypt. We're looking at this event that is so crazy. Older brother comes back in to save the day, and what happens? He's not there. Then he goes back to his brothers and says, the boy's gone. What am I going to do now? Because he knows who he is going to have to talk to. Brothers killed a young goat. They dipped Joseph's robe in the blood, and they sent a beautiful robe to their father as his message. Look what we found. Doesn't this robe belong to your son? How do you do this? Father recognized it immediately. Yes, he said, it's my son's robe. A wild animal must have eaten him. Joseph has clearly been torn to pieces. You guys, this is what we would consider, in Joseph's eyes, if we were him, something that would be really hard to forgive. This is blood. Close enough. You're half-brothers. And they look at you and they say, we're going to kill you. Just kidding. We're going to sell you into slavery. And we're going to cover everything up so Dad doesn't know. They must have been pretty good at acting because they got away with it for a very long time. Now, Joseph goes into slavery, and he goes into all these things. And what's really great about Joseph, along this journey, we don't see him lament on this. He probably does, because he's human, but we don't see it affect how he and his character is portrayed as he goes along this journey. There is something about Joseph and his relationship with God where he is able to compartmentalize what happens to him and how he views his brothers. I'm not going to say that he still looks on them in love at this point, that says, I just can't wait to see my brothers again, to give them a big hug. He probably is thinking, they threw me into it, well, just wait, what I throw them into. But he's the littlest, so we know that he's probably not there. But your heart can get stuck in something that is called a victim consciousness. A victim consciousness is saying this: if it weren't for you guys, I would have this in my life. Now think about Joseph. If you were him, many of us can fall into this trap. If it wasn't for my brothers, I would be doing great things for my father in his household. I would be serving the Lord in a way that I feel God is calling me to. If this dream comes true, I'm going to be at some high level of my life. Whatever he is thinking, he is going with, if it weren't for you, I'd be this. This is having a rejected heart, and it has a victim consciousness. You may have been here at some point in your life because something happened to you, and you are still sitting on, if this didn't happen to me in my life when I was this age, or by this person, or by this spouse, or by this brother, or by this church, I would be here. And then we start to fantasize actually what that outcome would have been. And so our heart becomes even more bitter because we can't get to this elevated dream that we've made of ourselves because of the hurt that we've had in our lives. I worked with a lot of kids when I was counseling at a school that were abused at a young age by people who should have been loving them, like parents. And when they were pulled out of the houses that were supposed to be loving parents and put into a place that was supposed to be safer, they then again were abused by the people who were supposed to keep them safe after they were pulled out of their house. Over the time of this abuse, they developed this kind of heart. And it's really, really hard to soften a heart that is constantly in rejection and bitterness. Because they have a dream of what they could have been. And they don't see themselves in that light anymore because now they see themselves as hurt, rejected, angry, unlovable. Joseph could easily have been there. After all, he wasn't a superhuman. He wasn't like Jesus where he was God and man in the flesh. This was just a boy. He was thrown into a pit, sold in slavery. I could only imagine. If it wasn't for my brothers, one, I know I wouldn't be a slave. Instead of being whipped, I would have been hugged. We can have all these thoughts in our mind. So what does he do? Like, we have to see him move on to this journey, and this is what I want us to get. Like, here's some points that I want you just to kind of meditate on as we talk about some of these things. Forgiveness happens not by ignoring the abuse, but by calling it by its name, leaving it there, and moving on. This is one of those things in life where it's super easy to say, if you really want to forgive somebody, just like do this simple step, and it'll happen really, really easily. This is not a process that will happen overnight the first time you do it. It's not something that you can just say, hey, today I decided that I'm just going to move on from all this hurt in my life that has lasted years and just be able to be free from it. It is a process. I like to call it an unpacking process. I feel like each and every one of us inside of our hearts has a file cabinet. And in our file cabinet is a bunch of shelves labeled different things. And one of them is hurt and rejection. And sometimes that one is so full that we start filling up other files with the ones that go in there. So instead of filling up like joy and happiness, that file, we start to use that room with bitterness and resentment. And then maybe anger, loneliness, and depression because we haven't dealt with our unresolved issues. How many of you in here have ever like swam in a pool or a lake and you decided to try to like push a big beach ball in the water? Anybody ever try to do that? What ends up happening with that beach ball? What does it want to do? It wants to shoot right back up at you. When we carry on in our lives without dealing with unresolved issues, it's like we are taking this big beach ball of feelings and we are trying to suppress it so hard when naturally all it wants to do is jump up. And we're expending so much energy trying to push down all of the hurt so that nobody sees it. But guess what? Eventually you can only hold on for so long before all that stuff comes to the surface. And when it does, it doesn't normally go the way that you wish it would. What we end up doing as people is we take it out on the ones who are the closest to us. Without even trying or without even knowing, unconsciously, because the ones that are closest to us, we see the most, we might even trust them enough to carry it, we dump all of this stuff on them. This is a big deal when it comes to your marriage. This is a big deal when it comes to how you raise your children. This is a big deal on the relationships that you have. And I want you to just kind of take a walk in your mind of times that you've done this, when there was something going on in your life, and you really were trying to deal with it, but you didn't know how to, so you just try to hide it. The next thing you know, you find yourself snapping at your spouse. You find yourself snapping at your kids, yelling at them to do something simple. I'm guilty of this process. That's why I'm speaking on it. It's not me like calling you out on the bad things that get done. We are, in nature, want to look right in front of the eyes of other people, even if we're really hurting. So today, I hope that we start to learn this. Forgiveness in what God is calling us to do is not to say I have to hide all this hurt or I have to deal with this all on my own. It's saying if I can take all of this out and start to unpack it, name it what it is, and know that that is not in the character of which God has called me to be, it allows me a process of not only being able to move on in myself, but allows me to see the other people in my life for who God made them to be too. And that is a really difficult thing, especially if the person you're looking at is the one that really hurts you. So let's see what happens. If we go further down in Genesis, we get to see how Joseph starts to name what it is that happened, but he also starts to tell us how he dealt with it and how his perspective changed when he started to realize what God was doing within it. Now, I have to put this out there. God's character is not to do evil so that his good can abound. God's character is when evil happens, he can make good come from it. So I don't want you to leave here thinking, I'm going through some awful, terrible stuff because God is making this happen in my life so that somehow I can see him better. That's not God's character. God's character is when you are going through some tough trials, he will come alongside you and help good things to happen from the pain and from the hurt in your life. And so we see this in the story of Joseph. Out of all this time, Joseph has worked well to do what God has called him to do. He rose up in one aspect. Then Potiphar's wife said, this guy tried to take advantage of me. Look, he ran out of here naked. Even though Joseph's character was to say, I cannot be in this kind of relationship with my boss's wife. I will do anything to get out of here, even run away naked. But because of that, he gets thrown in jail. And while he's in jail for a very long time, Pharaoh starts to have a dream. Nobody can interpret it. And they say, hey, Joseph can do it. And Joseph goes to him and says, I can't do any of that stuff. But God, he can. And so he always defers to God in his journey and starts to build himself up in a way where God used him in his situation to make good happen. And when a giant famine comes to an area that could have killed everyone, it's because of Joseph that they are able to know what's coming, save up, and survive. And so, in all of that, we start to see his brothers coming back to him. And that dream that he has starts to be fulfilled, of knees bowing and all these things. When Joseph recognizes his brothers, you would think, this is where the blowout is going to come. He's so powerful. It even says that he's like the father to Pharaoh. If Joseph really wanted to get revenge in this situation, all he would have to say is, you see those guys over there? I think it's time for them. I don't think he would make them pay by death. I think he would say, see those guys over there? This is what we do, an eye for an eye, right? Can you make them slaves? Let's have them start doing all this work like I had to do. You done that before? You treated people like that before? They hurt you? When you have an opportunity to pay back, you go, let's see how much I can get them to know what it was like to suffer like I did. But this is what Joseph does. He says, please come closer, he said to them. This is when they were all meeting in his quarters. And he said again, I am Joseph, your brother. Listen to what he says to him here. I'm Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery in Egypt. But don't be upset. Don't be angry with yourselves for selling me to this place. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. Holy cow. How do we get there in life? Joseph knows exactly what they did to him. He didn't forget. We know he didn't forget. He called it what it was. You guys are the one that did this. It was because of you that I had to go through this. But his perspective has changed along this journey because he saw how God could take that situation and do something with it that he could never understand. And now he does. It was because I got sent here that I was able to save whose lives? Yours. People deserve death because of what they had done to Joseph. But he looks at him and says, no, this had to happen so that I could preserve your life. Does this sound like a familiar story? Does this sound like something that happened years later of a guy who comes and is born of a humble birth, who lives a perfect life? But because of evil in the world and sin, he gets put on a cross. And we understand that God had to send him ahead of us, even though we were the ones that put him on the cross. And it's almost like these words from Joseph or Jesus talking to us too. God sent me here ahead of you so that I could preserve your lives. We are all in need. This is what we started this series with. In order for us to have a forgiving heart, we have to know that we are in need of forgiveness. That we are not perfect, that we are not better than the people who are around us, that each and every one of us here needs forgiveness in our lives. We need a Savior because we are sinners. And Jesus comes before us and looks at us, and he could easily say, you deserve death. You deserve to be on this cross. You deserve every bit of this. But instead, he says, forgive them. For they don't know not what they do. Jesus shows us what a forgiveness heart looks like. He names the sins. Joseph named their sins against them. You did this. Let me pull it out. But I would need you to know how God is going to use this situation, even in your sin. This unforgiveness thing is a two-way street, because the one who's sitting there maybe holding on to the fact he doesn't want to let it go, there's also the ones who are living in the guilt of the act that they did. They also cannot move on from this. They just can't. Until you have a run-in where you can offer forgiveness. They could have left there and said, we don't want to forgive him, we still hate him. But you know what Joseph did? He released this from himself. He was able to move on and to continue to do good things for the Lord. He didn't say, if it wasn't for you guys, I would be doing this. He in turn said, if it wasn't for my Lord, I wouldn't be able to be here to preserve your lives. Don't be mad at yourself. Don't be angry. You know what goes on, though? In Genesis 50, he says this, too. He says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so that I can save lives of many people. In you trying to hurt me, and me trusting that the Lord will always hold me, I was able to overcome all of this adversity. I was able to overcome all these things, and I can look at you. We see that when Joseph met his brothers, he couldn't control himself, but he wept so loudly that everybody heard him, even with the doors closed, because he was now with his brothers who he hadn't seen in years, to bring back family, to say, let's move on. Where's my dad? Where's my little brother? How can we build this family together? You deserve something. You tried to hurt me, but God didn't allow it. How easy is it for us to take a victim's mindset versus one of victory? Joseph, in turn, said, I can't have this consciousness of being a victim and saying, woe is me, and have a pity party. How he did it was he said, I can be a victor through Christ, not because of my own will and desire, but because he holds me through it. And if I can see things through the eyes of God, I can then in turn offer the forgiveness to somebody who doesn't deserve it because I know that he offered it to me too. This sounds like something that you put on a bumper sticker, something that's really easy to say, and it's really hard to do, and it is. It is very difficult to have this kind of forgiving heart. I think what would help it to be easier is if you prayed on these things every day and give it to God every day to soften your heart. Even the disciples, when they were hearing a story from Jesus, they had to understand that this type of forgiveness requires a deep kind of faith. This is going to be a different topic, so don't take this completely yet. We're going to get to this one here pretty soon, but this scripture lets us know what Christ calls us to do in forgiving other people, especially our brothers and sisters. It says this in Luke chapter 17, 3-5. It says, watch yourselves. If your brothers or sisters sin against you, rebuke them. And if they repent, forgive them. That rebuking part is a way of calling them out on the things that they did. Naming that sin that has kept them from you. The thing that you are having a hard time forgive. But then it says this. Even if they sin against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times they come back to you and say, I repent, you must forgive them. The apostles said to the Lord, increase our faith. These are people who walked with Jesus every day, and they understood when people hurt you, maybe one time it might be easy to forgive, but what about 7 times in a day, and they just keep coming back and saying it? I don't know if they really mean it. I don't. But he doesn't care about that. He says, you've got to forgive them. And they say, at the end of all of that, increase our faith. It goes on after that to talk about what that faith looked like. And he says, even if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, this isn't the one that says you can move the mountain. It's the one that says pick up the tree, throw it in there, and it'll start growing again. He gives them all these hyperbole examples. But what he's saying is, trust in me in this process. Give your heart to me. Don't give it over to the things that are holding you down to this earth. I called you to be above it. Work on this. If somebody is asking for forgiveness, we should always give it to them. But I want to tell you, your heart won't truly be free from holding on to all that resentment and rejection of other people until you are able to give it regardless of if they want to hear it or not. And in that, when they do hear you, approach them in a way that says, I just want you to know that you hurt me really badly. But I am ready to forgive you to move on. Even if in that moment they don't want to hear it, they heard it. And it is really difficult to unhear that kind of forgiveness. One that is not natural to us as people. One that says, you hurt me. Whether you meant to do it or not, maybe you really did. But I just need you to know that God is wanting me to move on, and I think he wants you to move on too. And together, maybe this can rekindle some things. Remember, something that I've noticed here of late in my life, I've seen 2 examples of one this way and 2 the opposite. This is kind of a crazy example, but my stepdad used to run Sierra Bible Camp with one of his best friends. It was an elder of the church at the time. They were friends for a very long time. Something along the way happened, and a wedge was put in between them for 15 years. They didn't talk to each other. They were like always together, and then never together. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew what to say. They just ignored it. This festers some things. 15 years later, it took my stepdad to give him a call and go over there and say, I don't know what I did to hurt you. And I don't know what happened here, but I would love it if you would forgive me and we can move on together. Sometimes it goes from the other side. And they were able to come back and be friends. On the other end of this, I've known 2 adult women who are in their 60s We've been friends for over 30 years. And one incident came up, squashed the friendship, and they no longer want to be friends ever. And I just think of like, what is that showing your heart is like? That 30 years of friendship in one incident allows you no longer to be able to be family in the Lord or friends in the world. And that bitterness that came up in their lives has made a wall that is unclimbable for them. No matter how much we've tried, how much we put out there. And this is a really sad thing. So what I want you to know today is there is no abuse that's too big for you to call out and say, hey, this happened. It really did happen. I can't forgive you and just say nothing happened, I will forget it and move on. No, it says this happened. You did this. This hurt me. But I can't allow that hurt to consume me. And so I need you to know that you're forgiven, that you are forgivable. I hope that in this journey of all these things that are so difficult for our human brains to really comprehend, maybe you start just chiseling at it. Open up that file cabinet, start unpacking it. Look at it. Look at the things that you have suppressed for so long that you don't even realize that it's affecting all the other things that you do. And start calling them by name. Make a list. And in that, maybe there's some names that you need to go and pick up your phone and call. Because if you don't, that file cabinet doesn't go away. It just starts filling up your other ones. So my challenge for all of us, myself included, is today, can we open up that? Can we do the hard work? And I'm not going to lie to you, it does get a little more difficult before it gets a lot better. It will be hard to relive some of those things because you actually are pulling it out to get rid of it. But at the end of the day, when it is fully pushed into somewhere else, you don't have to deal with that anymore. You can be free a little bit. Let's go to God and pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, you are an amazing God, and we are so grateful that you, out of all people who did not deserve anything from us, we can't repay you for anything that you've done, and in our actions we deserve death, but you decided to give us life. That through your Son, you gave us forgiveness. And God, I don't think that we respond to that forgiveness very well. And I think sometimes we still go on living, thinking that you will just continue to do that for us, so what's the point of living any different? God, I just pray that you help us to change our mindset. To know that when you freed us from sin, it is now allowing us to live in that freedom, to live with joy in our lives, to live with happiness, to get rid of the bitterness and rage and malice and start forgiving people the way in which you, our Savior, forgave us. God, I'm so grateful to be in there. So grateful to know that my name is in your book, to know that all of my transgressions are being blotted out by the blood that you shed on the cross for me when you rose from the dead, and now you're interceding with God for me and for all of us. And I just pray each day you give me the courage and the strength to do things outside of my fleshly character in the way I love people, in the way that I forgive people, the way that I allow myself to be forgiven. And God, I just pray that you help us to unpack all these things that we've been stuffing down for so long so that our relationships can change. Our relationship with you can change. Our relationship with our spouses and our families and our friends. All those things can start to change because you are giving us this incredible burden that can be lifted off of our shoulders. So God, I just pray that you help us in that today. That we start the journey today. That we start to evaluate the things that we think are unforgivable, and we start to reevaluate them with the love that you have for us. We pray all these things in your Son's name. Amen. All right, we've reached the time. If you are outside of Christ and you want to know what it looks like to be part of his family, we would love to have you come up and we would talk. Smile on our faces and hands clapping and leave with just filled with that love that God gives. Let's sing together. Shout hallelujah! Shout hallelujah! Shout hallelujah unto the Lord! Shout hallelujah! Shout hallelujah! Shout hallelujah unto the Lord! Sing out loud to God, and the people shout before his throne. Hallelujah! Sing out loud to God, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. from the ends of the earth.
From the ends of the earth.
From the depths of the sea.
From the depths of the sea.
Let all creation praise His name. Shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah unto the Lord. Shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah unto the Lord. Shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah, shout hallelujah unto the Lord. Amen. Have a great week.